Good to be with you. I'm glad you're joining me. We're in Advent right now, and we're leading up, of course, to Christmas. And I started to think about what I was thankful for, what we should all be thankful for. And it's so important to keep your memory, to know what just transpired this last 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 years. It's amazing what was going on. So, what am I thankful for? I'm thankful that under Donald Trump, I'm not getting arrested for saying Merry Christmas. That Merry Christmas is back in. Remember, it wasn't very long ago with Obama and Biden. It was happy holidays or whatever. And you could say happy holidays if you want to, but it was amazing how people would look at you if you just said Merry Christmas. I'm thankful for Donald Trump for that. I'm thankful for Claymore, the big sword behind me, Claymore Militus Christi, Soldiers for Christ. These young men that are waking up just surprised the heck out of so many people that in the most toxic culture, these young people could come up. This shows you that this is in our hearts. This is in our hearts. What is the truth of things? How should I live? Who am I? What's the purpose and meaning of my life? What is the truth of things, huh? So Donald Trump, thank you, Jesus, for him, because he believes in something. He believes in marriage and the family. Look, he's been divorced 3 or 4 times. He's coming to this party late, I think, but I see his faith blossoming. I think he understands something. He loves the country. He saw what was happening. And I think he started to understand one nation under God. What does that mean? One nation under God. And he's talking about it. And Merry Christmas is back. Our nation's leaders are proclaiming Jesus Christ. Marco Rubio, J.D. Vance, many of the others. If I watched this second or third, probably the third time I saw the whole cabinet together. And these are faithful people. These are believers. So thankful for Claymore. It fills that story, huh? It tells these young guys that weren't formed, that some of them grew up in the church, some of them didn't, but there's so much noise they got away from their own heart. So three-step battle plan, right? For getting your heart back, understanding marriage and the family, going out and restoring the culture and the nation, patriotism. If they don't do it, if we don't all do it, get together and do that, we won't have a nation for them. And I really feel bad because I have children and grandchildren, and so do my friends. And it's not just. It's not just what's going on. It's a real battle to destroy human beings and destroy their hearts, separate their hearts from their souls, their bodies and souls from God themselves, to not understand what love is, happiness is. It's insanity. In a way, I got to tell you, in a way I like it. I don't like evil, of course, and I don't like what's really transpiring, but I like the idea that it's in the open, and you either see it or you don't. And if you don't see it, I really stopped really discussing things with people. It would be like just discussing, trying to bring truth in when somebody's just emotional and they don't really care. It's like seeing through two totally different lens. One is irrational. There is no truth, only my truth or your truth, and it's just all emotional. And one person is saying, what is the truth of things? What is the actual truth? And you can't discuss it. So I would much better spend my time like today talking to these young people that are growing up in this toxic culture and saying, what is it? What's going on? So for this alone, just be able to say Merry Christmas and they have a cabinet that's faithful, I would have voted for Donald Trump. Romans chapter 10, verses 9 and 10 says this. This is St. Paul, of course. The word is near you, on your lips and in your heart. That is the word of faith which we preach, he says. Because if you confess with your lips that Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you will be saved. For man believes with his heart, and so is justified. And he confesses with his lips, and so is saved. One nation under God, huh? St. Paul goes on, the scripture says, no one who believes in him shall be put to shame. No one who believes in Jesus Christ will be put to shame. For there is no distinction, and this is very important when you think about our country, there's no distinction between Jew and Greek. The same Lord is Lord of all and bestows his riches upon all who call upon him. For everyone who calls upon the name of the Lord will be saved. And of course, he's talking about Jesus Christ, right? So how many young people are hearing this for the first time? Not only from our nation's leaders speaking about Jesus Christ, but perhaps hearing it for the first time, period. St. Paul continues, but how are men to call upon him in whom they have not believed? And how are they to believe in him of whom they have never heard? And how are they to hear without a preacher? And how can men preach unless they are sent? And as it is written, how beautiful are the feet of those who preach good news. Well, we have politicians that are preaching the good news. It's amazing. I had a podcast maybe 2 weeks ago or something on Charlie Kirk, and I played a segment from Marco Rubio at his memorial. It was fantastic, right? So this, of course, is the heart of the attack. You see this against Trump derangement syndrome. This is the demonic attack, The heart of the attack, remember this, against young people today, though. That's where the attack is, really against children. If you're going to protect the children, then you're going to get attacked. To keep them from hearing the good news, and it's been effective. Young people today have been just disconnected from their faith. Astonishing, then again, is the fact that these young guys are waking up and asking, there must be something more, and going on to ask, what is the truth of things? So many people thought this battle, what is the truth of things, that when you're asking that question, it's a political or an economic question. Well, COVID brought it all together, didn't it? We used to see this battle that begins in the human heart. It goes out as a battle between left and right, or socialism and capitalism. It was an illusion, though, because we found out during COVID that the people in power, the deep state, the deep church was real. We were supposed to be living in a republic. The Western civilization was supposed to be free. COVID showed something more sinister, didn't it? Both systems, corrupt, inefficient, ineffective. Socialism and this fake illusion of democracy that we were living, which is just morality taken out of it, and everybody just becomes greedy and wanting more and more and more. It becomes hardly any difference between them. Both funneling money, taking it like a hydra, a multi-headed serpent, just with all these tentacles going into the hardworking middle class, and funneling it to who? To the so-called powerful. And they give a few peanuts to the poor. Those are on welfare, food stamps, especially those are in the government dole, and they buy the votes. And that's why you're seeing, like in where I live outside of Chicago, where you can't turn this around. It's a blue state because they've got over 50% of the city is on some type of welfare. So they're going to vote for them, and they just come sucking the rest dry. But it can't go on forever. It continues to unravel. In fact, they are often the one and the same thing, these governments then, right? We say we're free. You're not free. Try not to pay your real estate taxes that are going up and up and up and up and so unjust. It's amazing. You're not free. They'll take your house for you in a second. So let me address the battle the young people face. We try to get ahead of it a little bit, right? These young guys that I'm talking to are trying to get ahead of this economy. They're trying to pay off debt. Sometimes it's college debt. They want to buy a house. Someday they want to get married, and they think, man, if I could get money for a house. What they don't notice, and this is why I really enjoy being with them and talking to them through this Claymore battle plan, because what they don't notice is this whole pyramid scheme is falling around them. So they're trying to pay down debt. They're trying to do the right thing. They're worrying about what they're going to do for a living, etc. But what's happening is our money is going out to pay student loans for people that took these gender classes and all this kind of stuff, and now they can't pay their loans back, right? We're giving free money to illegals that came in here and taking the tax dollars from these young guys when they're working a job. Free money to those who will not work. And it goes on and on and on. So this is coming around them. We're overspending. The whole nation is in debt, and this is imploding. So while they're trying to work so hard, unless they see the big picture, and we need to turn this whole thing around. So they stand before two apparent doors, it looks like, right? Door one, where the state, socialism, and this Marxist socialism, it's all atheistic, stands where the state owns you, right? The state becomes the power. The state becomes dad. I've talked about this last week in a podcast. You should go listen to that. It's really, really good. I have a couple articles out on that in different magazines and things. I'll have to put some links in the next couple of show notes. Or door two. We hear the capitalistic market. And then what they found out, these young guys, though, is the market uses them too, right? And so these are both distortions, both deformations, deformed ways of treating the human person, the human good. But to a generation that was raised without moral formation, without deep community, without even a dad and a mom in the home so often, without the transcendent horizon of faith that connects you to God, you have a lens that you get blown all over. So the compassionate promise of socialism feels like the only option that speaks to their wounds. The government's going to take care of me. No, the government's not going to take care of you. The government wants to keep you on a couple of little food stamps, keep you poor, and everybody in between, all that middle class is going to be taken out, right? So we're all going to be equally poor. That's what socialism does. And then you got the rulers on top, right? These are the government people. So history offers a very sobering truth about this. Socialism has never delivered on its promises, never. It has produced oppression, poverty, and a mechanized view of the human person everywhere it's taken root. You are just an object to be used for the state, huh? Now, the capital markets, without moral foundation, also uses you as a consumer, huh? To buy this, to buy that, to buy that, and always stay in debt, huh? Always looking for the next thing I need to own. The tragedy is not that young people are drawn to socialism. Mamdani, say, or a communist or socialist mayor in Minnesota, in Seattle, in Chicago, in New York. I'm all over the place. It's not, the tragedy is not that these young people don't know any better and are drawn to it. The tragedy is they were never shown the alternative. They've never shown the truth. They never had the gospel preached to them, like I said earlier from St. Paul. Long before our current political movement that we're in right now, the Catholic Church has been talking about these things and bringing them down for many, many, many years, right? Now, I wouldn't listen to, Pope Francis or maybe even Pope Leo. Let's see what he has to say. But we don't need to listen to these kind of modern voices, right? The synod of synodalities and stuff, because the church teaching has been coming down, what we call the deposit of faith, being brought down to us from generation to generation. So the church offered a vision radically different from both collectivism, socialism, and unfettered individualism. This vision, articulated recently by Pope Paul VI, John Paul II, Pope Benedict XVI, right before Francis, has been described as a fully Christian humanism. Now, this is not some vague spirituality or a baptized version of secular activism, which we hear from Francis, and unfortunately, sometimes I hear that from Pope Leo now too. But it's a profound understanding of the human person as created by God, ordered toward truth. What is the truth of things? Fulfilled in communion and union with each other and with the church, and destined, we can't forget this, destined for eternal life. Three necessary societies that our Catholic foundation in Catholic social teaching. The human person, the human heart, you got to get that right. Understanding marriage and the family, Christ and the church, this is united. And then we go out and form the culture, and then how we organize the state, the government, and also the economy, finance, etc. Always united to Christ and the church. Take these values then of life and love. When you talk about Christian humanism, it starts with the person. It starts with marriage and the family. It starts with reality. And then we go out and build it. Our justice system, our laws are based on the 10 Commandments, the rule of law, honesty, integrity. This is how we built the United States. This is what Donald Trump is starting to really, really understand. And he knows we got to get back to our roots. And those are Christian roots. The Christian humanism shaped the church's strong preference now for a market economy, for capitalism, basically. But it's got to be grounded in moral law and service of the human person, what the church tradition often calls a free economy with a moral order. So we're free to go out and start businesses. We're free to live our lives, but we have to have a moral underpinning. Over both collectivism and unrestrained laissez-faire capitalism, where you just, you get greedier, and don't worry about the worker, don't worry about the effect in the common good. No, you can't have either one of those. Either one of those becomes this oppressive tyranny. John Paul II said this in Centenius Annus, which was updating Pope Leo's Catholic social teaching. Centenius Annus means 100 years, so he updated 100 years after Pope Leo XIII. This is the beauty of these roots that I'm talking about. He said the free market is the most effective instrument for utilizing resources effectively. and responding to human needs, but only when it operates within a strong juridical framework under laws, right? And laws that are going to be in place that protect the common good, that places it at the service of human freedom and recognizes businesses and the economy not as an end in themselves. He saw capitalism as capable of serving the common good, all of us, all of humanity, when it's guided by Christian ethics, the rule of law, an active civil society that understands all these things. But it gets dangerous when it's reduced to pure profit seeking, or we become idols of the market. People that all they care about is the stock market and money, and Satan is behind all this. And when you lose your heart, he'll find some way to destroy things. Pope Paul VI taught that authentic human development requires a complete humanism, which is open to the absolute, open to God and informed through that. And so this is where Catholic teaching comes in, right? And it always serves the family. This is the roots of it now. It always has to go back to serving marriage and the family, because that's the basic building cell of we forget this, of every civilization, all through history. Where do people come from? Where do functional people come from? People that have been educated in the truth, in the love, in sacrifice. It's families to go out and serve their neighbors and communities and build a culture. The books that they read at home, the traditions that were passed down, including faith, morals, values, virtues. What about honesty, hard work, taking care of one another? Don't lie, don't steal, don't cheat. I mean, all of these things have been erased. Look at these mobs that are robbing these stores. So the government needs to get behind this, and Donald Trump is understanding it. You got to lower inflation. You got to stop this debt that's going on. You got to stop all this corruption that's going on in the deep state. And people don't care about anything but themselves. And who is behind it like an orchestra leader? It's always Satan. We don't realize this. Think about real estate taxes. I know so many families with young children and their taxes going up every year for a crooked, corrupt education system that doesn't care about your kids. They just care about their own money and their own ideologies, right? When we got to stop the government borrowing and all that stuff, the wasteful spending. Remember how they attacked Doge? Why did they go after Elon Musk? Because what we're doing, we're cutting off their money supply. School vouchers should be there where families can go to the school that they want to. We got to help families instill these timeless values that come down and pass them down. And what does it all come down to? Love. It's all based on love. Love in the truth. Speak love in the truth and speak the truth in love. The thing the people want more than anything else, more than paying the mortgage on time, more than getting rich, really comes down to it. And anybody that's got rich knows this. If they have any moral foundation at all, the only thing that leads to meaning and purpose is what? Love, and to serve other people. So is there some reason for being on this planet? Is there some mission? Am I useful? What's the meaning and purpose of my life? Why do you think kids today are anxious, depressed, and even suicidal? You've taken away meaning and purpose from their life, told them they're just accidents of history. The human heart doesn't function well, right? So we got to speak the gospel. We got to speak to these young people in the truth. That's what Claymore is all about, right? The evil of various systems is clearly out in the open, and it's mocking us. However you refer to the system, progressivism, socialism, communism, secularism, modernism, globalism, totalitarianism, climate alarmism, queerism, they're all the same. What do? They attack marriage and the family, destroy children, take God out of the equation, and the culture and the nation starts to collapse. We see this. This is already happening right before our eyes in Europe, in Western Europe right now. At its core, they're all anti-human. This is what we have to be able to see. They're always an attack on the human person, especially children. It is not natural, of course, for a species to destroy itself. There's a metaphysical, right, beyond just the physical, or let's call it supernatural battle going on between God and Satan. The battle is for the human person, body and soul. We know who wins. Our Lady has already crushed his head. God won that war. Jesus Christ came in and conquered sin and death. But we're living in a temporal world where we're free, and it's human freedom given by God that allows us to choose between good and evil, truth and lies, beauty and those who would profane what is beautiful. So we got to stand up for children. Whenever you get confused in the world, look what they're doing to children, the most innocent, vulnerable, and defenseless. I'm looking at this woke mind virus, right, that we're talking about, twisting and distorting these young people, even their bodies. What do we call it? Extinctivism, maybe. I don't know if that's a word, extinctivism, where we not only abort children, we render them sterile in these gender ideologies. We euthanize them. It's amazing how we're killing the older people, or even sick kids now. Climate alarmism. Take away all of the cheap energy and stuff all over the world, and who gets hurt? It's always the poor. Give me another boost, Fauci, right? How many boosts there's, and people are still taking those vaccine boosts with that mRNA vaccine. I can't believe it. Look at, when you talk about how what a battle this is, look at Charlie Kirk, assassinated for speaking on the truth of things. A reminder of just how fierce this demonic force is. The goal is the destruction of the human person created in the image and likeness of God. See, Satan can't kill God, and he doesn't have his own clay. He's not a creator. So what does he do? He attacks and twists and distorts the clay of God, huh? God created us in his image, in his likeness, and he's good at it. Satan is good at destroying us, hasn't he? And he's recruited a whole army of the fallen to carry out his plan. This is what we call the deep state, the deep church. They're embedded in all our institutions right now. We are at the end times. And the end times, when Jesus came in, we were already starting to go into the end times. So we don't know exactly when that is. We're not supposed to even, try to guess. But we know that it's winding down. Sister Lucia Fatima said the last great battle between our Lord and Satan is going to be over what? Marriage and the family. And we're seeing that the point of that attack on children. Propaganda, it's nonstop. If you're not careful as a young person today by filtering it all out and seeing it for what it is, this culture of death, it destroys the human person. It will destroy you and me, and the beauty of the culture and the country that that you want to raise families in, that you're going to be living in, the most beautiful and the most powerful, the richest, the most successful country in the world, because it was grounded on those Christian values that we already said. St. Paul, let me read you something from St. Paul, because it puts it in perspective. This is Ephesians 6, verse 10. Put on the whole armor of God. He said, finally be strong in the Lord and in the strength of his might. Put on the whole armor of God, that you may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil. This is a story that we have to understand. It's playing out in front of us. It's a very challenging time, but we can see this now. For we are not contending, St. Paul says, against flesh and blood, but against the principalities, against the powers, against the world rulers of this present darkness. He's talking about the ranks of angels, but he also is talking about those who cooperate with him, the human beings in this world. So against the world rulers of this present darkness, against the spiritual hosts of wickedness in heavenly places. Therefore take on the whole armor of God, that you may be able to withstand the evil day, and having done all, to stand up. And then he goes on to say how to do that. Read that. Ephesians 6, start at verse 10 and just kind of read through and meditate on that, right? So the fallen ones who seek to destroy us are not the true enemy. The enemy is the enemy. As wicked as guys like Joe Biden can be, and maybe because he lost his mind, it was the auto pin thing that put all these gender ideologies and the abortion laws. And, go look at his first executive orders the very first day he came into office. It was all anti-human. But Satan is the one behind that. Satan is the orchestra leader, the leader of the deep state, the leader of the deep church. Once you start to understand that, even in relationships, you go, the guy that's arguing with me, he's really not the enemy. The enemy is the enemy. So many people aren't even baptized today, don't even have that grace flowing from baptism, have never been brought into the church, or they just rejected God. So again, COVID made this so clear. I'm almost thankful for COVID, because it woke people up that may have never been saved. We thought we were free in Western civilization, but it was an illusion. We're enslaved, used, manipulated, lied to, and the so-called leaders of the Western nations were following their father. What does that mean, to follow their father? I've read this to you before, but it's worth doing again. The next thing after Ephesians 6, read John chapter 8. It's one of my favorites for sure. I'm only going to read you a part of him. And he's going back and forth with the Jews of his day. And they answered him, and he said that, God is not your father. And they answered him, well, Abraham is our father, so he's connected to God. So, of course, God is our father. And Jesus said to him, if you were Abraham's children, descendants of Abraham, you would do what Abraham did. But now you seek to kill me, a man who has told you the truth, which I heard from God. This is not what Abraham did. You do the works of your father. They said to him, we were not born of fornication. We have one Father, even God. Jesus said to them, if God were your Father, you would love me. We get back to love again. For I proceeded and came forth from God. I came not of my own accord, but he sent me. Why do you not understand what I say? It is because you cannot bear to hear my word. You are of your father, the devil, and your will is to do your father's desires. Listen to this. He was a murderer from the beginning, has nothing to do with the truth, because there is no truth in him. When he lies, he speaks according to his own nature, for he is a liar and the father of lies. But because I tell you the truth, again, in today's time, there is no truth, only my truth, your truth. Yeah, this is Satan. Because I tell you the truth, you do not believe me. Which of you convicts me of sin, Jesus said. If I tell the truth, why do you not believe me? He who is of God hears the words of God. The reason why you do not hear them is you are not from God. And that's what we got to realize. I'm getting older. I only have a certain amount of time left. I'd rather speak to young people and spend my time with young people who are at least searching for the truth. Some of these older people have been sitting with that proverbial frog for so long, they just fell to these bullies of this age, They sold their souls to the devil. Since the fall, right from Adam and Eve, there's always been bullies. You think about this and the murderers. Cain, the next generation, the son of Adam and Eve, murdered his own brother Abel. And now these same people seek power, money, sex, right? They want to twist everything that's true, good, and beautiful and take the lives of those who don't agree with them. This goes all the way back from Genesis 3. Here's your third thing you read is Genesis 3, where I'm just going off the top of my head, but where he says to Eve, you will not die if you eat of this fruit. No, you will be like gods, and you can call evil good and good evil. Isn't this what this trans and this queer and killing babies and twisting and distorting marriage? What is the thing that brings you joy? I'm asking you now, right? To love and be loved in the truth. Marriage, family, children, grandchildren, your neighbor, God's creations, even the things we enjoy in this temporal world, food, laughter with friends, a great glass of wine. But we seem to lose track that these bullies exist around us. And if we don't wake up and proclaim Jesus into this world, and this is why I said I'm so thankful for Donald Trump and his cabinet. They're actually proclaiming Jesus Christ at the top. But we're not always doing our part underneath, are we? So that's what we have to do. We have to get this army, this grassroots army that's not afraid to speak the truth. I mean, we're all going to die at some point, What's our meaning and purpose? To love and be loved and speak the truth, huh? And that is really dangerous, what's happening today, because we live in a world that's under the influence of the biggest bully. The actual oppressor who seeks to destroy is Satan, who is the orchestra leader. And his objective, again, is the destruction of humanity. Watch for that, watch for that, watch for that. Today we stand once again before that tree of the knowledge of good and evil, just like Adam and Eve, and we choose. The battle lines are very clear. The weed and the wheat are taking sides, right? We're separating ourselves. God doesn't have to do a lot of work. There's no other rational reason for the destruction of marriage, the family, children. When you see this incredible influx of immigration that they're allowing in the European countries to completely change and destroy that Christian culture, why is that allowed? Because we threw God out first, and then Satan just comes in and he just fills it in, right? Human life is being destroyed in an unprecedented number, never before seen in human history. The 20th century, we saw this in all the different wars, and this is accelerating now. But even with all those wars, abortion and euthanasia and the things that we're doing to each other, it's just killing more. It's not even close. This death toll is accelerating. We're reminded of John Paul II's reflection on the 20th century. He's looking back at the beginning of the 20th century, right? The world wars, etc. He said, it began with the hope of unlimited progress, but it ended as the bloodiest century known to man. Modern man had placed his hopes for a Messiah in his own genius. science, technology, medicine. John Paul said this 30, 40, 50 years ago. Whenever man loses sight of the great mystery, he said, and sets its sight only on this world, he always meets disappointment, even despair, because the world is not capable of making man happy. This is the world without God. It's not capable of saving him from evil in all its types, illness, epidemics, pandemics, catastrophes, and the like, he said. This world with its riches and its wants needs to be redeemed. It needs to be saved. You think we would all caught on to this cosmic story by now. It's good versus evil, light versus darkness, love versus lust. And we would seek the better way that's been revealed to us. But so many people miss the larger story. We get caught up in this little tiny story of our own selfishness, and we enclose ourselves in sin. The result is always the same, a broken heart, huh? And when I'm talking to young people that were told, they're just an accident of history, they're not created, life has no meaning or purpose, and you see this hopelessness, right? And we're all broken in some way, all of us. We've all been broken in one way or another. But along the way comes some very good news. The path to meaning, healing, and hope, which leads to authentic love and profound happiness, can be found. First, know that there's a reason for your deep ache and your thirst for something more, young guys. Alexander Solzhenitsyn said, why did all this come? Because men have forgotten God. And St. Augustine, in the third and going into the fourth centuries, our hearts are restless, Lord, until they rest in you. So John Paul says that a tremendous responsibility falls upon the church and the believer. And a distinct but weighty responsibility falls upon the political community and the citizens that live in a country to speak for the truth. There's a message. There's a path. It begins with the Redeemer of man. Throw out Jesus Christ. Throw out the Redeemer of man, and there is no solution. Mankind has tried everything for all of history, but we don't know history. This message is amplified and developed for the subsequent 26 years of John Paul II's leadership as Pope. He said the path is the way of man, this path, the narrow gate of Jesus Christ. But it involves a proper understanding of our conscience. We have to be educated correctly. But at the heart of it all, it's a path of love. It's the path of truth. It's the path of Jesus Christ himself. God is love. Truth is not a something. If you're wondering what the truth is, it's a somebody, and his name is Jesus Christ. So it's a universal call to holiness and the sanctification of everyday life. It's not brain surgery. Again, it's the two great commandments, to be filled with divine life and love, and to go out and become a person of love. That gives you meaning and purpose, right? So, there's a lot of things happening today, right? I mean, even if you just believed in biology, when I was a kid, it was all about biology. There's no God. It's just evolution. Well, you would see human beings, if that was true, trying to pass on their genes to the next generation, right? If it was all about that, think about that. That's what they told us. It's all evolution. It's trying to keep our genes going. Well, we're destroying our own lives. We're childless. We're destroying the baby when it comes in. We twist our gender ideologies, render these young people sterile. Don't forget, there's only one way through sexual intercourse between a man and a woman that new life comes. All those other things twist and distort that. We have decisions not to marry today, not to have children. This doesn't make common sense. If you're following Darwinian evolutionary theory, it goes against nature and nature's law. Well, what's the good news? The good news is this is a call for all of us. It's not a call for the politicians or the lawyers or the educators or the deep state Vatican even, or the deep church. It's all of us have to rise up. And this is where Claymore comes in, because it lays a foundation in the truth. And as I kind of start to think about how to wind down here, G.K. Chesterton is so beautiful, right? He said, when a man stops believing in God, he doesn't believe in nothing. He believes in anything. When you think about these trans movements and abortion, we believe in anything. Jesus said to the Jews who had believed in him, if you continue in my word, you are truly my disciples, and you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. We know this in our own hearts. It starts in our own hearts so we can experience this freedom ourselves, freedom from addictions and pornography and murder and hatred. We're surrounded by horrors we can no longer pretend are on the margins. The slaughter of millions of unborn children, the deliberate redefinition of marriage until it means nothing, the open war on childhood innocence, to these trans ideologies, to what we're doing to them in schools. It's a demonic distortion that preys especially on those who may never have been given the armor of baptism or the armor of an education in our religious background to protect us against the rulers and powers of this present darkness. St. Paul did not mince words. He said, we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against the principalities, against the powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. Only the power of the living God can cast these down, and he has chosen to do it in large measure through us, ordinary Catholics, ordinary Christians, who will finally stop standing idle. He says, come on, you too come into the vineyard. Our faith is not theoretical. It's fiercely practical. We must plunge deeply into this divine life, prayer, sacraments, scripture, penance. Download the Claymore battle plan outline from our website. I'll have a link in the show notes. And then carry that fire into the world. It's all laid out there for you. We do not sit like the frog in a slowly heating pot, watching generations slip into the abyss while we scroll, shrug, sigh, get into porn, gambling, whatever, anything to fill that time. We're ravenous creatures. Time is winding down. You're going to lose the nation. None of us wants to reach old age, sit back on a rocking chair, and realize that the destruction we tolerated in our own hearts leaked out, wounded our families, our children, our grandchildren, our neighbors, our nation. We didn't pass anything down. What a lack of courage. I hope, I don't become one of them. To the young people especially, I say, the world has lied to you. It told you marriage is oppression, children are a burden, and America is the root of all evil. America has grave sins, yes, but it's not the fruit of a broken system, not on our foundation, not on our Constitution. It's broken because we're broken. There's a fruit of broken hearts inside that system. When John Adams warned this republic was made only for a moral and religious people, it's unfit for any other. He meant that, right? So we're starting to wake up. We're starting to wake up. And next time I come on, I think I'm going to talk about 1 Samuel 8, when the Israelites were coming into their own nation, and they had judges. They didn't have a king over them. And then they said, we want to be like all the other nations. God's not enough to be our king. We want an earthly king. And in there, God explains exactly what's going to happen. In fact, maybe I'll just say a couple of things here, right? The Lord told Samuel to warn them what the king would take. Listen to this, if it's not the same thing today. This is from the Old Testament. He will take your sons for his chariots and his armies, right, into war. To plow his fields, to forge his weapons. He will take your daughters to be performers and cooks and bakers. He'll take the best of your fields, your vineyards, your olive orchards, and give them to his cronies, and give them to people that will support them in their power. He will take 1/10 of all your grain and vintage for his court. Well, today they take a lot more than 1/10 of our grain, don't they? He will take your servants, your best young men, your donkeys, work them for his projects. They're going to take something of all of us, right? He's going to take 1/10 of your flocks, and for yourselves, you will become his slaves. And that's what we're becoming. That's what we woke up from COVID. And the final chilling word, you will cry out, God said, in that day because of your king who you have chosen. But the Lord God will not answer you that day because the people refuse to listen. No, they said, we will have a king over us so we could be like all the other nations. This is what the United States was becoming until Trump came in. This is why I'm thankful for Trump, because we're turning back to God. Look this is a big battle. This is a lot of evil going on, so we all have to wake up. Let me just say a couple other things. I would have voted for Trump just to be able to say Merry Christmas and to hear them talk about Jesus Christ. Politics is a messy business. This battle that they're in is messy. Can you imagine the power structures that are after Donald Trump? I would have had voted for him just to close the border to this river of sex trafficking and fentanyl coming in, and water down and dilute our Christian culture. I would have voted for him just so parents can speak at school board meetings without the FBI treating them like terrorists. This was going on just a couple years ago. I would have voted for him just for a cabinet that prays in Jesus' name and says Merry Christmas without apology. Something stripped from public life over Obama and Biden. You know what? I would have voted for him just to dismantle this great climate scam. The pharma industrial complex, where we're just continuing to vaccinate without being tested. You know the story. The military industrial complex that just is growing richer and richer from all the wars. The corrupt Department of Education that pushed these radical gender ideologies into the souls of little ones. Rachel Levine, who was Richard Levine, a man that's married with 3 kids, who decides to dress up as a woman and take over the nation's health, for sending abortion decisions back to the states so that our country is no more under this evil, for rooting out the runaway fraud and corruption in the government, for stopping the United States from polluting the rest of the world because we were pushing these radical gender ideologies, DEI, gay marriage, abortion, war, overthrow governments all over the world, just undermining everything, just chaos. Donald Trump is not our savior. He's a remarkable instrument being used by God to do some really good work, but it's up to us to fill in those gaps. Don't keep coming down on Donald Trump. He's doing the best he can. He's not a perfect man. He's not perfectly formed. At the end of the day, I'm just astounded by how much he actually understands. And we got to pray for him, right? That real work, though, is saving our own soul, our marriages, our families, our culture. It happens at the grassroots level. It always did. Jesus didn't go out and grab the rich guys. He didn't grab the rulers of the world. In fact, he did the opposite. He went and got the poorest guys, the fishermen, the people that had nothing. And he said, you go out. And he said, well, we can't go out. We're just the poor. We're weak. He goes, I will give you the strength. I will give you the courage, right? It happens when plumbers, doctors, lawyers, machinists, mothers, and students carry the gospel into every corner of the world. And then when they come into power, they'll do what Marco Rubio and J.D. Vance are doing, right? So young men and women become the right person first. This is where it all starts, Even before you go out and get and try to find somebody to marry or date or whatever, you become the right person. Sink below the spirits of the age that want to blow you around. Protect innocence. Then marry well. Raise children who love God and the country. Refuse the false kings. Give your life fully, joyfully, courageously to the one true king who takes nothing but your heart, and in exchange gives you everything, even himself. This is the hour for the laity, huh? So again, we see all these different things happen, right? Jesus does not treat holiness, though, as a suggestion. He gives us a command: be holy, build on the rock, obey my words, enter the battle. This is a universal call to holiness. It's not just a poetic phrase. It's a wartime commission. You too go out into my vineyard. The master is walking through the marketplace at the 11th hour. He's looking straight at you and saying, you too go out into my vineyard. Answer him. Remember what he said? The harvest is great, but the laborers are few. And the king is coming back soon for the second coming. Print out the Claymore battle plan. Follow it. Phone a friend. Know that the Claymore handbook is getting ready to be sent to the printers. Should be ready to bring to your parish. And think about this. Plant this seed. We're going to begin as soon as this handbook's ready. We're identifying right now and continue to send us some names, 100 young leaders, 100 young men, and they don't have to know everything because we're going to be able to give that to them. They just have the desire for the truth and to spread the word of Jesus Christ and to disciple others. So we're looking for 100 young men from 100 different parishes who plant the seed in their parish. They don't need anybody's permission. They don't need to get an okay from anybody because they belong to a parish. And now they're going to just look to disciple 1 or 2 or 3 other guys, and we'll continue to build out from that. People that are looking for the truth, right? The future is going to belong to those who build. You've seen the 2 dead ends. You've heard the Pope's warnings. You felt the cost of a culture that believes freedom means loneliness, pleasure means happiness, progress means replacing people with screens. But now you are seeing the way out. The Claymore battle plan is not nostalgia. It's not a compromise. It's not a vibe or a political pose. It's a counter-cultural revolution of freedom. And the number one liberation we need to be free from is sin. And then we look to marriage and the family, love of country, love of neighbor, to protect what we build from totalitarianism, from socialism, for those that would use and abuse people, so that we can own property. We can start to build families. We can serve the poor. We can fear God alone as our king, because everything else turns to dust. The Claymore battle plan is not a theory you admire. It's a life that you choose. And here is the secret every saint understood. Your small decisions can rebuild a world. Every decision I make brings me more into evil, more into an addiction. Everything I do good, it rewires my brain. It gives me peace, it gives me purpose. You know, these meals that you have with your family and with friends, blessed in gratitude and prayer, the business you start with integrity, the children that you welcome, the parish that you help revive, the elderly neighbor you take care for. It all takes courage to refuse the lies of this age. These things echo across generations. Politicians cannot save us. Technocrats cannot design a human future. Influencers on social media cannot preach us back to sanity. Only people, real people, rooted people, sacrificial people can rebuild what's crumbled, and that means you. So you're not too young. You're not too late. You're not too small. You're exactly the kind of person God uses when the world is shaking. Be not afraid. Build, love, begin. Because the future will belong to those who walk through the narrow gate, and Claymore will journey with you, be there for you, and we'll journey together. For eternity doesn't mean tomorrow. Eternity means forever. We're already eternal beings, and it's a win-win situation. When we do good in the world, when we love others, when we build others up, we're also opening that narrow gate up. We're going through the heart of Jesus Christ into eternal life at the same time. It's a win-win situation. We're connecting with what Christ did on the cross, redemption, salvation. We take this into our heart, and then we speak with our mouth, and so that we were saved. Shoot me an email if you have any questions. If you want to see a show, if you want certain topics to relate to, if you have questions about Claymore. God bless you. Talk to you again soon. Bye-bye.